Hi everyone, I'm sure that you are well aware of what has been going on in Minnesota and many other states during this last week. I originally planned to talk about something else, but I decided that it's best that I use my voice and privilege to try and make a difference. Over the last week, there have been dozens of protests across the state and nation. Because my channel is sustainability based, I wanted to use this opportunity to talk about something that is severely overlooked, and that is environmental racism. As we know, sustainability is not only about the environment, it is about economic, social, and ecological well-being that can be maintained for years to come. Sustainability and environmental issues is intersectional. Everything is socially connected, and when we talk about environmentalism and environmental issues, we have to recognize that people of color do not have the same experience. The vast majority of them are disproportionately affected by environmental hazards. Environmental racism takes form in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it is intentional, sometimes it comes up because of systematic racism, and I am just going to scratch the surface today. I don't know everything there is to know about environmental racism, but I do realize that I know something and I need to talk about it and get people involved. So what exactly is environmental racism? Environmental racism is the disproportionate impact of environmental hazards on people of color, and that is a direct quote from greenaction.org. So in what ways does environmental racism take form? The most common way that environmental racism takes place is when communities of color are burdened with toxic waste facilities. They are exposed to higher levels of pollutions that are carcinogenic. But environmental racism goes far beyond just where toxic waste facilities are located, and it pervades almost all aspects of life for the Black community. In America specifically, African Americans are more likely to live in environmentally unsound housing, schooling, playgrounds, and this could be anything from they lack environmentally efficient buildings or their playgrounds are covered in lead paint. In fact, African American children are 5 times more likely to get lead poisoning than white American children. And that is according to a 20-year-long comparative study led by Robert Bullard, and I will link all of my sources down below, including more resources that you can click on to learn more about environmental racism. Environmental racism isn't just a class issue. Middle-income African Americans are still more likely to live in polluted areas than their white counterparts. Even white people who are below the poverty line are more likely to live in less polluted areas than African Americans in this country. It's insane. Another example of environmental racism that takes place so often in our country is against Native Americans. It's very common for mining companies to come onto reservations and Native American land and literally rip it out from underneath them for raw materials such as uranium. The problem with this is not only are they stealing land again, they're leaving the Native Americans in that area to much higher rates of radiation exposure. Radiation exposure obviously causes cancer and other health issues, and too often it is overlooked by our government. Another popular example is obviously Flint, Michigan. So what can we do to help put a stop to environmental racism? The first one is to support legislation and politicians that will not allow people of color to be neglected when it comes to their environmental surroundings. And by this I mean, do not support policies or bills being put in place that would allow mining to happen on Native American land. Do not allow pollution regulation rollbacks, because the people who will be most affected by this are Black people, people of color, Native Americans, and not the white people. The second thing you can do to help is allow people of color to lead this fight. Too many times white people come in and try and fix areas. If you want to help an area out, if you want to heal an area, let the people who are suffering lead that movement. You can stand behind them and fight with all the passion in your heart for them, but our experiences are not the same and they will know what to do to help their communities best. The third thing you can do to fight for environmental justice is to recognize what privileges you have and use those to help people who are suffering. The fourth thing you can do is to fight for climate action, and especially fight for climate action that addresses people of color and the fact that they will disproportionately be affected by climate change. And final thing is to fight racism. You have to, and that doesn't mean you're going to do everything right. That doesn't mean that you're gonna know what to say every single time, but it does mean recognizing that all of us, every single one of us, everyone has racial bias. And if you can't acknowledge that, then you are part of the problem. So please fight racism. That's where we start. Don't be afraid to reach out with your thoughts and share them. This is supposed to be a discussion, and thank you so much for watching, and make sure to do good this week. There's a lot of people who could use our support right now. I'll see you guys next week. Be safe out there, and Black Lives Matter. Peace.